Alright, we're in the meantime. Local Celebrity Edition with me and Dave. Number 10, Sammy Obeid.
Alright.
Obeid.
Alright, everybody.
And
oh, hey!
There you are. See?
I didn't know this was a video.
Yeah, it's video. It's a tube cast, I call it. It's not a webcast because I don't stream this shit, and it's very low maintenance. This was sort of the answer to what happened with I used to have my old podcast, which you were on at FCC Unfree Radio, and had a parting of the ways with the manager there, as happens. Yes, exactly. I think, as Sammy pointed out, if you get kicked off FCC Free Radio, that's a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So, but I'm in the car. We're on our way to where we're going to conduct this this week's tube cast.
Lake Elizabeth.
Lake Elizabeth in Fremont, because as some of you may know, or most of you may not, depending on who's actually watching this and who keeps tabs on stuff, Sammy is from Fremont.
I was born in Lake Elizabeth.
It
was a water birth.
Water birth in Lake Elizabeth. That's a wow, and you're pretty healthy.
I'm still doing it.
Yeah, because that's a toxic lake. It's actually, I was talking with one of the guys over at. We just came from Maloney's Cigar Lounge where Sammy picked me up because I smoke cigars. For those of you who haven't seen any of these episodes, I smoke quite a number of cigars. But we are going to Lake Elizabeth, where I used to work. It's kind of it's an awesome place. If you're growing up in Fremont, you get to go there. Usually, at some point in your childhood, feed some ducks, which you're not supposed to do.
You're not supposed to do.
Yeah, get some overpriced food at the concession stands. Are you making a left here, or do you know which one? Where? Oh, you know where you're going. He's from Fremont. What am I? Either way, whichever part of the park we're going to.
Easier way to go.
So, but yeah, Sammy Obeid is probably one of the busiest people that I know. Known him since I started in comedy, but actually I met him when he hit me up about going to one of my open mics. I used to see him around.
Which one?
That was the Hookie Lau.
Yeah, the Hawaiian place.
The old Hawaiian spot.
Yeah, everybody was like, yeah, this guy named Mean Dave runs it. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to talk to that guy.
Not everybody. It's a defense mechanism. That's the
then I met
stage
Mean
name.
Dave. I'm like, he's not a mean guy at all.
Not at all.
Nice
not at all. Only under certain circumstances, usually with alcohol involved. But
Chris Shapakasi.
And Chris Shap. Well, Chris is the meaner one. Yeah, it's the other thing. We were going to do an episode, or try to, with Chris Shapakasi, who is, you can just Google that name, SCHIAPPACASSE. It's harder to spell than Mississippi, but he's a long-time infamous local comedian that he's you just look him up. Check out his karaoke jams if you do, particularly the one Owner of a Lonely Heart. That's my favorite. But Chris has sort of a screw loose, and he always likes to pick on people about personal information. And I made the mistake of telling him about my second DUI, and since then he will never shut up about it. So I didn't want to make this episode all about my DUI, just because Sammy's here, and Sammy's time is valuable. Sammy, for those of you who don't know, I'll give him an opportunity to tell his life story in 200 words or less. But just want to give some of the local celebrity credits of Sammy's. He's been doing comedy now for how many years?
7.
7 years. At some point about 4 years ago it was when you started the 1,000 Days?
It was about 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago, Sammy embarked on something that he did and has accomplished 1,001 consecutive days of performing stand-up comedy, which according to our knowledge has not been done, or if it was done, nobody ever bragged about it.
Right.
And he documented it all on his blog. Where can they find that blog?
SammyKO.com.
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 He has also, his blog has a lot of other stuff which we'll talk about. But that 1,001 days of consecutively of comedy was not only just impressive to all of us who were at the bottom of the local aspiring comedy scene food chain, but it got notice near the end of it, to which he ended up getting booked on Conan O'Brien, and I think it was day 998.
Yeah.
Day 998, he performed on the Conan O'Brien show on WTBS, and I had that episode TiVo'd permanently until we had to get a new box. so I lost the episode. But I'm sure the clip's up on YouTube or someplace.
Yeah.
It's on Conan, so you can look that shit up. Yeah, they got weird parking here. I wish here check out one of the digs where we're trying to find parking at. Ugh. It's a little abandoned over here. So
I'll just park right here, and we'll just sit on these steps.
Sit on these steps. Oh yeah, nice. Until somebody tells us not to.
Tells us to get out.
Yeah, get this shit out of here. This is cool, man. I wish I was in my skate days. We'll be right here. Let me see. Well, yeah, fuck it. Let's keep going.
Let's go. Let's
keep going. Yeah.
Stop the party.
Yeah. Here we are, Lake Elizabeth. This is probably a part of Lake Elizabeth that most people don't come to. Let's see here. Grab my backpack. And let's see. Let's go find a nice little jammy jam here. As you can see, Sammy is sporting a tank top today. I'm sleeveless in the Canada shirt. It's July 5th, right after the 4th of Jules, where people have been blowing shit up all over the place. Oh yeah, right. Well, actually, we can sit right here, man. So, yeah, these steps are pretty good.
Shady enough.
Yeah, shady. That's where we were looking for shade.
Sit like right here.
Yeah, there we go. Put this down and keep an eye on your car too. So this is the low maintenance. In the meantime, there we go. Good shot there. This works perfectly there. All right. So yes, Sammy Obeid. Now that we're here, one of my routine things: 200 words or less. Give us your life story, and that's just a loose rule. You can take as much time as you want.
I can do it in 2 words.
2 words. Wow.
Fucking crazy.
Fucking crazy, man. You hear that shit?
My life story. Okay, born and raised in the East Bay area. Always wanted to be a musician. Started drugs when I was 13. Gave up on that.
Good time.
Was always a good student. Got into UC Berkeley. Turned down job at Google.
Ow, whoa. Did not know about that.
Became comedian. Struggles with depression. How many words was that?
That's close. That's close enough. Where are you living now?
I live in Los Angeles, but I'm here in Fremont a lot. I'm here almost as much, maybe even more. But I pay rent in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. So Sammy's been, again, really been doing... He's one of the guys that a lot of people around here... There's not a lot of people in this local Bay Area comedy scene that everybody, I would say, roots for. Because there's a lot of... everybody's just an asshole. I think it's because everybody wants something. They may not be ready for it, or they don't know put it, whatever. Sammy's one of the few people that it doesn't matter what you think about any of his comedy. Nobody, I don't think, works harder than this dude. Pretty much, in that 1,001 days, how many times do you think you performed comedy in that time?
How many sets, you mean?
How many sets, yeah.
Well, I had the exact count, and it was close to 2,500.
2,500 sets.
Averaged about 2.5 sets a night.
That's pretty fucking amazing. And some of those sets are, and that doesn't mean like, 5, 6, 7. I mean, some of those sets are like hour-long sets.
Yeah.
One of the shows actually that you did just before announcing your Conan show was he headlined at a room that it was a rough room I was starting at this place called the 23 Club in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And Sammy performed for 8 people headlining that shit.
That was a good show.
It was because of you, really.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was one of those rooms. It was a great venue that, unfortunately, it's in Brisbane, and there's really
it's not my first and last time in Brisbane.
Yeah, it's not. Well, did you ever do the 7 Mile Club?
No.
You never did the 7 Mile Club.
No.
Wow, well, that's okay. That's
part of the 700 Club.
700. Oh, what's the 700 Club?
It's like Christian.
Ooh, that's right. I forgot all about those guys. The morning TV show and shit. Yeah, was it so? So another thing, so he did 1,001 days of comedy, and ending that all in 998 on Conan. When was your last gig?
The last gig. Well, the thing is, the 1,001 night was at the Punchline.
That's right.
That was the final. But there's the Lost Day, which a lot of people don't know about. The 1,002 day, where I did I did a gig. I didn't really want to do it, but I had to do it. Mm-hmm. And that was basically the last. And so it was like the 1,001 night, the Punchline. I sold out. All my friends were there. Best set possibly I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Next day, I bombed in front of like a group of like 200 Palestinian families.
Where was that at?
That was in San Francisco at Golden Gate Park.
Oh, nice. Well, hey, what better way to, hey.
Yeah, it was nice because it was like I did the punchline. I was like, fuck, comedy's great, And then the next day I'm like, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm still going to take this 10-day break.
And that's the awesome thing. That when I first heard about, again, the break, not only that, this week something occurred that I wasn't used to hearing, knowing Sammy, was that he was taking July 4th off, which I wanted to applaud that. Because, again, for a guy who works as hard, being I imagine at anything you do, being that you said you were a good student, going into UC Berkeley, whatever, when you put your mind to something, you work hard at it.
I razor focus on it, and I drill, just drill until I get there. Doesn't matter the casualties.
Yeah, and you can tell, but if you watch him perform,
animal casualties.
If you hear that, PETA, don't be fucking with him. He gets his focus on
Tell these ducks to watch out.
Fuck yeah,
man. I was born in the lake.
We'll feed them. But one of the things too was he if you ever get a chance to watch him perform to an audience, it's especially if the audience starts off being kind of raw or uninterested or whatever, because he's a graduate of a lot of these open mics and showcases that I love to perform at, where the tough rooms where people may not want comedy. They may not. They're just the room got hijacked by a comedy show. People were enjoying their dinners, and now all of a sudden they got it. Oh, hey, we're doing comedy here, right here. And I always liken it to to comedians that are insensitive to this fact of like, well, imagine if you're taking a dump and somebody comes barging in and says, hey, if you mind if we drink beer or eat dinner here while you're taking your dump?
Right.
You're trying to get your business done. And Sammy's one of the people that will win people over a lot in however fashion, because the man writes a lot of material. Tell us a little about your process of writing material.
My writing process. There's usually there's a couple different ways I write, but my main thing is I like to smoke weed and go for walks.
I did not know he smoked weed.
Yeah, I smoke a lot of weed.
There we go.
That's why I'm, sometimes I'm just kind of...
Would not know that to see the guy. See?
Yeah, I don't strike most people as a weed smoker until you see me stoned, and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But I like to smoke weed and go for walks, and that's where I come up with my very creative ideas. Creative or I think they're creative at the time, they're not. One of those two. But sometimes creative ideas. And then that's where I get my raw ideas, or I'll just be out on the go inspired. I always write my raw ideas down, even if they're not formulated jokes. I prefer writing them down completely raw. And I put them all in one big sketch pad on my computer. And then later I go through that sketch pad, which is probably the hardest part of the process.
Yeah.
Remembering to do that, especially when you smoke pot, and then going and actually doing it and going through each one and actually trying to remember what I was feeling at the time that made that interesting to me, and trying to capture that and turn it into a bit. And then usually what I'll do is I'll either write out a little bit more, or I'll just remember what I was feeling and write it down and take those to an open mic and just kind of talk about it.
See how that works.
Then I record it at the open mic and I see what works. If it gets laughs, then I continue doing it that way. If it doesn't get laughs, I reformulate. And then from there, the joke just kind of evolves and it becomes a work in process. And I do it over and over at shows until it gets better and better. And then I cross it over to my official jokes list.
Done pile. Gotcha. Yeah. And that's it. Very interesting, because I've kind of sensed that about him, but I did not know the beginning process of it. And it brings up a good point of a lot of, because a lot of people will write things down. One of the things that I've never seen you do, I always see you busy on your laptop, but I never see you sitting there trying to jot things down in a notebook or something right before you're about to go up. And that I always liken it to like people that would cram for a quiz they know they're going to fail. And hearing that part of the process is very interesting, because it involves a level of memory recall in terms of you writing your idea down and then later looking at it with whether it's a stoned or a little more clear mind, trying to remember what you were thinking at that point. Most people don't do that, because one of the things that I like to do, I did this in songwriting too, is if I had a riff in my head or I have an idea in my head, I wouldn't write it down or record it right away or anything. I would wait And if I could still remember it a week later, then I figured it was something that was worth kind of going into a little more. Just because of that. If you can't remember it, how can you expect anybody else to, pay it? And that's a riff thing. I mean, comedy's a little different. Well, probably a lot different. But that part of the process was really cool. Another thing too, Sammy wrote down that was really interesting because also, as he mentioned, the practice of bombing, not really the practice, people don't, I mean, some people intend to bomb and whatnot. Most of the time, comedians are not
doesn't
trying.
Take practice.
Doesn't take, no, not at all. You can bomb very easily. Or you can,
I'm a natural bomber.
You can try to bomb and actually sometimes maybe not bomb. But the handling circumstance where you're trying to make people laugh and it's not working, Sammy is no stranger to it, as he pointed out. After accomplishing quite a number of goals, the very next day has a humbling gig that reminds him, I'm just, just another one of these people that,
often on the same night. Often I'll have a great show at a, packed club or other kind of theater or venue, and then I'll hear about an open mic in the area, and I'll just trash that whole dream that I established earlier in the night, and that leaves me the night like making me want to work harder versus leaving it feeling like fuck yeah, man, I got this. Yeah, I don't need to write any jokes. I've got a great set.
The humility factor, I guess, because that's one of those things that, I really, that's one of the things I respect a lot about him. When I first met him, I saw him at a lot of the open mics that I went to. And I remembered him. I'm like, oh, this guy's really sharp. He's really, he's really on it. I wonder what level of comedian, because a lot of times you can tell who probably gets work and stuff, and who is still, just hitting these open mics. And I was surprised to get this email from him saying, hey, Dave, this is Sammy Obeid. I'm interested in performing at your mic or whatever. How long or whatever. Da 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 da. And I was like, "Are you kidding? Come by." And I know who you are. And I recalled my favorite joke at the time of his was about a Black Angus. He used to say, "Jokes write themselves." I think that's a setup that you've done to a few jokes.
Yeah, and then later I found out that joke's been done many times. However, I will say that my wording was unique and fresh.
Yeah.
And I never took it from anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Thought of it on my own.
Parallel thinking.
Parallel
thinking.
Thinking.
It happens.
It's like parallel parking.
Exactly. And he
not easy.
Well, not easy. Well, it indicates that also, especially it depends on, I'm sure the way he put it, I haven't heard anybody else do the joke. I'm sure other people have, but the way I did it was this is the thing. It's a Black Angus sign where the G burns out.
I have a lot of jokes that are hacky because somebody else did them, but I will say that I never knew it at the time that I wrote it, and my version is always a good version of it. I do, I like to take hacky jokes and make them better. Yeah, make them unhacky. Or try it. It's a good test of one of the jokes that I wrote, that I started, and I still fuck with it, and I actually now tell the setup of how I knew what a hacky premise was Brokeback Mountain is not. I didn't know Brokeback Mountain wasn't a Western. That's a stupid premise because everybody and their mother knew that Brokeback Mountain wasn't a Western. And I used to do it with that ignorant. I said it was the worst Western I'd have ever seen. And then I saw professional comedian Norm Macdonald, very established comedian, finish off a set where he goes off. He goes, I don't want to come off as a homophobe, but that Brokeback Mountain, that is a horrible Western. And his whole joke with it was very Norm Macdonald, and I loved hearing that guy of all people tell a joke that I was telling. And I stopped doing it for a while, and then I'm like, wait a minute, mine's kind of a little bit different, and it doesn't sound exactly as his. And I came up at it with a different. And I saw another comedian that was doing a joke that I didn't like his version of it at all, and so I don't do it that often. But it's but Norm Macdonald took his last name from Ronald McDonald. Does that make you feel any better?
No. I mean, I'm sure there's other. I knew McDonald's growing up. There was a Kevin McDonald and a Megan McDonald.
They all took it from
Ronald McDonald. But
everyone's a hack.
Everyone's stealing from everybody these days.
Why not get your piece? Get your piece, everybody.
One of the things that you wrote about that I thought was probably one of my favorite pieces of your blog that I got to read was a night at our local comedy club, Tommy T's in Pleasanton. One where he cut his teeth a lot at, doing a lot of different shows, and it was a night where he had the entire audience booing him. Something I could not picture this guy doing is if you see his material, I could see people just doing the thing of where, you know, they may not be they may not be interested, they may not be paying attention, but to boo this guy, I couldn't picture that.
I will tell you that is my most popular blog ever.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the blogs I made, of all the thought I've put into so many blogs, that was the one that everybody was like, wow, I read that and that was really good. And it's funny because that blog is about me failing unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the absolute epitome of failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas not to say that in my other posts I'm like bragging about successes. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really doing that, but at least I'm talking about other things that might be going well, or you know, shedding insight. Whereas this, I'm just talking about a night that I got booed really, really bad, and that seemed to be enjoyable to a lot of people.
I wouldn't say. Well, no. Here's the thing. I didn't find it enjoyable as much as, and I think this is why maybe a lot of people are interested in how people deal with you know. I mean, we watch movies about how people overcome the odds, or how they're interested in triumphs over, you know, just anything that any sense of adversity, anything that's just that I couldn't do that, you know. And people want to know, how did they survive, or how did they handle your worst fear or a worst fear. And in comedy, being booed by people is one of those. It's one thing to get a non-reaction, which I think is a worse reaction than being booed. Is people just not giving a flying, like looking at you and not giving a flying shit, not giving you anything to any level of response whatsoever, because it's indicating more they're not even having fun in mocking you. But in this case, the cool thing is he gives the breakdown of why the night was kind of troublesome to begin with, correct?
Yeah.
And he had this audience that was really rowdy, being very antagonizing to the comedians. And he went up and did 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's 20-minute set. Yeah,
20-minute set, and then he gives the play-by-play of these people that are shouting things at him. And his reaction to it was one that I love, because I like to do the same thing, where if he could tell that if he tries to deliver a material that he thinks this audience will like, and they're not digging it and they're making it harder for him, he then is going to choose jokes that he knows the audience will not.
Yeah, why not? Why not go out with flying colors?
Exactly. And one of the things, the reason why I found it it wasn't enjoyable over, oh yeah, Sammy got booed, good. It was the fact of what was his reaction toward, you know. And one of the threads through the whole thing was there was a table in the back of this room that was enjoying his set the entire time. And he then catered, he said he basically honed in on that table, and you ended up, and you were entertaining them regardless of what was going on, and that even antagonized the audience further.
Right.
And so it got very personal for this audience, and like they were determined to break his spirit, rather than Sammy saying, you know what, these are the people I'm performing for right now. Fuck the rest of these people.
But in the end, I think like most of them started to get that it was like, just because they hated me didn't mean we couldn't have a good time.
Exactly. And probably you got some chuckles. You won them over here and there.
Yeah, there was some laughs.
Yeah, and then in the end, it just became an us versus him type of circumstance. And the happy ending was that he ended up performing at the Crow's Nest on the following Sunday, and there's a couple that comes up, and
like, we were the people at your show that last week laughing. Man, that audience was rough, but we saw that you were performing here tonight, and we had to come out and watch you.
I'm sure you had a good night there.
Yeah, and they saw me. It was like completely different, you know. But they weren't surprised, which was really cool, because usually when people see you at a bad show, they see you at a good show. Like, I did a show last week with this girl. She came and saw me like in Portland, like at an open mic a few months ago, and I bombed. I ate it there, and then I had a great show this other night, and she came up to me and she's like, yeah, you were not good that first night, but you were great this night. Like, well, yeah, I mean, she was like surprised, you know.
It's funny that, but did she come to see you, or she just happened to be?
I think she came to see me. I think she was following me on Facebook. But,
interesting.
I mean, hey, you know.
And that's the thing that's the thing that the audience is, there are, you know, comedians that are established who go out and do. I remember hearing somebody at a Rooster T. Feathers new talent night. There were a bunch of new comics who were bitching about Tracy Morgan performing a show that they all went to, and they were saying, yeah, he just bombed for like an hour and a half, where he was just talking, telling stories of this, that, and the other.
Really? Where was this?
Cobb's. At Cobb's Comedy
Recently?
Club. It was a few months ago, probably like 5 months ago or so. But it was one of those things where I'm hearing their response to it, and I think it's one of those things where everybody assumes. I mean, Richard Pryor, the big one of the big stories live on the Sunset Strip was that all of his performances leading up to that were horrible, and were very difficult for people to watch. In him developing all of the material that ended up in that special. And then and even when he recorded the first night, that night did not go well, and then he recorded the next night, and it ended up being the special that they made. And it's just one of those things, a testament to the fact that if you really do enjoy stand-up comedy, which I did before I even started doing, I actually enjoyed it more when I didn't do stand-up. But I appreciate the process more now than I ever did probably prior to it, because I remember seeing comedians that didn't have excellent sets before, but they might make me laugh. I have a sixth sense of humor, so what's going to make me laugh isn't going to make everybody laugh, or unless I'm in a room full of six sons of bitches. But the fact of like finding stuff. One of the things that I noticed, because my mom saw you at God rest her soul, if you believe my jokes. She saw you at Rooster Teeth Feathers. I have a joke about her being dead. She's not dead. She saw you at Rooster Teeth Feathers headlining, and one of the things she's seen Sammy a few times, and she said he was really good. Really, just really had. She loved your math jokes. You have a math joke that is just almost. It's like calculus. Just with like puns and plays on words, all kinds of stuff in it. And I noticed you were really relaxed too, more so than I probably had ever seen.
When was this? A couple months ago.
That was a few months ago. You were headlining.
Competing,
right?
You
were headlining one of the rounds of the competition. Yeah.
Was it semifinals or prelims?
I think it was semifinals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I guess one of the things I'd ask, how is it? What has changed now since when you were doing the 1,001 Days? And you were putting all that pressure on you, which I remember you were on my podcast during that time, and you were going through a real bad spell.
Oh yeah, that was a bad one.
Yeah, and you were like, I don't love comedy. I don't. What has changed since?
I'm more relaxed now. I mean, just being able to take a night off every now and then makes a world of difference.
It does.
So I don't feel like I'm being forced. I felt like I was being forced to do comedy by gunpoint. During that phase of the streak, but now it's more like my choice, and it's more relaxed, and I feel more creative and open and having more of a good time. I'm not going to go ahead and say that everything is golden and beautiful, because there's still the horrors of comedy.
They're there
day and night. But I would say it's 10% better, which it's huge.
That's
very
huge.
big.
10%
is huge.
Is big.
Is the difference between suicide.
Yeah, it is, and also and having a good attitude when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever the circumstances.
Yeah.
I just recently I performed at 10:30 in the morning. This was at a men's health. It was a men's health event in Castro Valley, and we were hit up by El Boogie. This guy, he's a local comic who he's a real grinder in his first year and stuff. He was one of these guys that I love him to pieces. When he was early on, was trying to book these gigs, biting off a lot more than you would think a comedian of his skill set could chew. And but he learned a lot in doing them. Some of them going well, some of them not going so well. But he took all of that stuff, whatever, and he gets into these gigs with that I know are pretty interesting. That I'm like, these are going to be fun tests of whether or not comedy will even work under these circumstances. So I got to perform at 10:30 in the morning outdoors to mostly vendors that were setting up for the day's events, and a bunch of kids that were all in vests that looked like they were DUI, like doing the weekend work release DUI shit. Turns out they were all in juvenile hall, and they were all there just resting before a day of picking up trash throughout the event, and so they really could care less. So it was fun. I said it's a good thing to start off your morning. I had two other gigs around the area. It was good to start off your morning eating shit for a small amount of people. Where I don't know if exactly what would have won him over or whatever. I think I got him to chuckle in some stuff here and there, but it wasn't. It was an experience more to just have fun seeing what would stick at all. Well, not really material, but just kind of and try and also we had to work clean and do my best not to trash the event. I was just pointing out that I'm not a healthy guy. I'm smoking a cigar right here, and here I was doing comedy for this men's health benefit at 10:30 in the morning, which is probably the earliest I'd got up prior to getting a job. So I guess a lot of what are some of your favorite places to perform at after this long time performing? What are some of your favorite places?
I would say number one is Tourette's Without Regrets at the Oakland Metro. It's a monthly show.
Yep.
First Thursday of the month.
Every month.
It's a mixed show, spoken word, poetry, comedy,
variety,
hip-hop, and the crowd is always just very supportive. And I like their range. I like Santa Cruz. I like basically most crowds in Santa Cruz. The Crow's Nest, even, which has a reputation of being rowdy animals, once you learn how to tame those animals, they can be intellectuals and really cool people.
Yeah.
So, but they're fucking animals.
Yeah.
So, and remember, no sparing animals.
Fucking animals.
But I also like I like Santa Cruz. I like Tourette's Without Regrets in Oakland. I love the San Francisco Punchline. The San Jose Improv is where I was born and bred. Even have fun, a good time at Tommy T's. And then I love performing in New York. New York is just a really cool place. As far as LA goes, I like the Belly Room at the Comedy Store. I like the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach.
Nice.
I like the Irvine Improv. Those are my 3 favorite places in LA. And then other than that, there's just a lot of cool places around the United States. There's like almost too many to name. I love Chicago. Chicago is a great place for comedy. Chicago and New York, super cool. But, comedy can be cool anywhere. Sometimes shows that you don't expect to be great will be awesome. So it's just kind of, you never know. And sometimes shows you expect to be great suck. Yeah,
that can be a truth, too. One of the things, too, I also notice, again, because he mentioned before doing this, we were going to try to do this with an infamous local comedian, Chris Shapakazi. And again, I say look him up if you don't know who he is, so you have a frame of reference for who this personality is. Sammy has a great, temperament with almost everybody in the aspiring comedy scene. Me myself, I went into it more with my punk rock attitude of like I'm gonna gravitate towards those who I either like as comedians or as people, and anybody, because I've learned through music, the process of learning and doing anything is it's hard enough, so you might as well focus on being around people that you like, as opposed to people that make it more difficult than it already is. Sammy, on the other hand, he's gone. I don't know how. Has a sort of a certain gift of just being appreciated by people across the board. But I'm sure you have your personal thoughts that you keep to yourself.
Yeah, well, I don't always keep them to myself.
Oh, okay.
But I can get along with pretty much anyone, even if I don't particularly care for hanging out with them. Is that
what is it? Because I want to learn a little bit about this because I've been working on this myself. I'm in my 12-step program trying to, what would you give? What any advice that you would give for people dealing with, I would say, difficult personalities or personalities that are a little bit more predatory in the comedy scene?
You are always more of an asshole than anybody else because only you know all of your thoughts, and you don't know all of their thoughts, and you know all of your assholish thoughts. Even if you're a good person, you're still an asshole. Just remember that.
Good point. I like that.
Before you're quick to judge other people, just remember that maybe it's difficult because you're difficult.
Good point. That's an excellent point.
So just be easy, and they should be easy.
Yeah.
Accommodate to them. Suck their dick. Now, let me distinguish. I don't kiss ass. I don't hang out and network from people. But if I'm gonna be around people, find a way to connect with them on the basic level, or just stay quiet. If they want to talk to you, they can talk to you. I'm a pretty quiet guy. I'm pretty introverted.
Silence is, it does speak volumes.
Yeah.
What else was there? I remember that at the time, I don't want to bring up any hurt or whatever, you were having difficulties in the relationship department when I last saw you. Has any of that changed?
When was that?
That was, you were around day 700 and something.
Oh, yeah, that was right after I went through a breakup.
Yeah.
That was rough, and it got worse. It got worse and worse and worse. I was with a girl for 2 years, and she was a great girl, very supportive, but I wasn't fully feeling it, and that was a lot of the reason was because I was so devoted to comedy, and I still had like a lot of baggage from my previous relationship. So I asked to go on a break, and she didn't want that. She said, we're breaking up, and I didn't think she was gonna go through with it, but she did, and she moved on right away, like right away.
Wow,
with
that
a
hurts.
good contender, like
Yeah.
not just some sleazebag.
Yeah.
I'm the comedian, so suddenly I became the enemy in my own movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It was like 1,000 Days of Comedy. Let's go get it. I got a support team, got a girlfriend, everything's going great, and then suddenly I'm this fucking douchebag, and that's how I had to end. And it only got worse. It only got worse.
How did it get worse?
Well, I thought we might get back together, and we didn't.
Ah.
And I kept getting more invested, and the reality kept sinking in and sinking in. Meanwhile, I was like doing more and more comedy every day. I started getting anxiety, and then I ended up taking this antibiotic for acne that because I was breaking out. So it's like this antibiotic for acne that like gave me like anxiety attacks, made my hair fall out, changed this color of my skin.
Wow.
So I started flipping out, going crazy because I didn't really know what was going on. All that was going on. I was still heartbroken. Doing comedy every fucking night with no rest, and I just felt really disillusioned and disconnected from the world. And it was about a year ago. I was in my Arizona hotel room. This was like day 600 day 910 or something like that. And I thought about killing myself in my Arizona hotel room, mostly because it was so hot there. It was like 120 degrees.
Oh man!
I couldn't sleep. And it was that mixed with everything else, and I was like, "Fuck!" I was just like, "Why not just end it? Like, do I really need to finish this thing?" And then I was like, "No, I should probably finish it."
Yeah, that was.
Then I postponed suicidal thoughts till after 1,000.
And you see what happened? Then he got caught.
And then I made it. And I made it through. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna kill myself.
Yeah, and we're all better off for it because that would have been really much more. We wouldn't have been able to read the blog.
I'd be more popular though, for sure.
You would have been the martyr of, and a cautionary tale of too much comedy, plus a lot of life equals no Sammy. Right. But one of the things I want to applaud you for, because that was another question, was what were some of the close calls in this? Because I know in the 1,001 days, when you're trying to do something consecutively, as you just pointed out, life is going to throw you curveballs that are going to prevent you possibly or throw things where oh shit, I might not get a set in tonight.
Yeah, right.
What were some of the closest calls during those 1,000 days?
The first one was a night where I couldn't get up at the Punchline on a Sunday. There's an open mic that was supposed to happen in Oakland that got canceled, and it was like 11:30 p.m. and I'm driving around San Francisco looking for a set, and this was like day 170.
So it was early.
Yeah, and I had the thought, I'm like, okay, look, if I missed this night and didn't tell anybody, would anybody really know? Could I keep this going?
You lie.
And it's like 11:45, and then I like had this epiphany that was like, no, I could never live with myself if I did that. I could never live with the thought of being a fraud. And that's when I realized I'm not doing this streak for everybody else. I'm doing it for me. And that's when I passed by Ray's Hearth in the Richmond district and remembered that I did a mic there and it looked open. So I stopped by and I was just like, hey, a strange favor, can I perform here? And then Ray was like, I remember you from the open mic, and he put me up.
Fuck yeah, Ray's Hearth, man, coming through in a pinch.
Saved the streak.
And that was early. That was early in the thing.
He saved it again later. He saved it in the 800s as well.
Nice. That's doper because again that's one of the things where because I remember you needed rides at some point. Yeah. You were like stuck in Richmond, Virginia, or you were stuck.
I was stuck in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
That's right. And you needed a ride to get to another gig.
So yeah, the other, this was like the worst because it was like day 970 something. It was like the end. I was on this college tour in the middle of the country, and I lost my driver's license.
That's right.
Which I needed. I had a passport, so I was fine on getting on the planes, but I needed the driver's license to rent cars. There was no way I could rent a car without a driver's license. They will not let you do it. So, and I needed cars to get to these small towns where the colleges were. And so now here I am, I first landed in Detroit. And that's when I realized I lost my license. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do? So I like bummed rides from people, like friends of friends. I asked on Facebook, does anybody know anybody here? And they hooked me up with people, and I had to bum rides. I had to take trains and buses. It was horrible because I didn't know if I was going to make these gigs. And this is when I was like going through the fallout of those pills and I was going fucking crazy. And it was just like so much stress. It was the heat of the summer. It was like 120 degrees. And I was like, fuck. I was like, why? I was like, why is this happening? And then like 3 weeks later, I was on a layover in Dallas, and I got a call from the Dallas airport while I was in Dallas. It was weird. And they were like, oh, we found your ID here.
Hey!
So crazy.
Isn't that awesome? See,
so crazy.
That's one of the things that because I think the Hukilau was early in your 1,000 days.
Yeah, it was like in the first 30 days.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I recalled when it was kind of, because you kind of kept it to yourself that you were doing this at first.
Yeah,
Right?
It was low key until like the after a few months. And
yeah,
I started publicizing it.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that as time went on, and I looked at I was realizing, holy shit, my mic was part of the early element of it, and then also it was cool to have this little this show that was kind of a work in progress that never really progressed.
Yes.
That also helped you later on, because the very next day he announced he was at Conan. I was like, that's right, you perform at the 23 Club, things will happen for you. There's no connection to it, but still. How you doing? So one of the other things also, I mentioned Chris Shapakazi. You have a fondness for this comedian who has a reputation. If you haven't looked up the clips by now, okay, you should have paused this fucking thing. You're on YouTube already.
Third chance.
Yeah, you should have already looked this name up. Chris Shapakazi, who is a guy I hope to have on the show. This show is kind of almost very akin to one of his old shows he used to have with Vahe Hova. Hanging out with Chris Shapakazi and Vahe.
Which I did as well. You can watch Hanging Out with Sammy Obeid. It's a very depressing episode.
You see that? Yeah, because you were saying a lot of the same things.
2009.
You were saying,
I was depressed back then.
You were saying a lot of things that you didn't love comedy and that. Do you still feel the same way about comedy now?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm a little more jaded and a little less jaded somehow. It's weird. So you have to constantly renew yourself. Reinvent yourself. But I do, whatever I was saying back then, it was a very dismal point of view, but it still rings true in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But Chris Shapakazi, the reason he and I are friends, and believe me, he pisses me off.
Oh, he pisses out. I can believe it.
He pissed me off. When I started comedy, and I was going to these open mics, and like these more veteran established comics wouldn't talk to me or fuck with me. Even open micers would like just be like cold, like they're better than me, just because I'm starting out.
Yeah.
Chris Shapakazi, he befriended me, and Chris Shapakazi was like a guy who was doing this crazy weird act.
Yeah.
It's not a crowd favorite, but a lot of comics think it's really funny.
Yeah.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. And he was really, he was cool to me, and so we started going to mics together. We started writing together. Writing, not writing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my set would be like.
He was writing with you, yeah.
We were writing. We were driving.
Yeah.
So we would drive to open mics, and for like months, and we became friends. Even though he pissed me off a bunch of times,
yeah,
he still was one of my original friends in comedy, and I'm not gonna forget that.
And that's loyalty for you, because that's how I feel about Chris as well. He really, one of the things I always say, it's like if you can't stomach Chris Shapakazi. I think always a lot of new comics, when a lot of newer people always fall in love with them in a certain extent. They get to know, if they pass that, like that with time passing, they'll see good and bad sets of his. They also will probably either get rides with him or give him rides. And then at some point, because he comes off as somebody who is very personable when you talk to him, and he's always listening. And he'll pick up on information that he remembers that you saying, and will use it on stage or in some form that then will indirectly come back to you. I had this happen with when I told him some information about an aspiring comedian at the time, who I didn't hook up with, but I just spooned with her one morning, and I told him sort of the awkwardness of thoughts that happened. And a year and a half later, or a year later, I avoided that comedian that I spooned with, and I was avoiding Chris at the time too. And out of nowhere, at an open mic, this person who I had spooned with comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a second?" I had no reason, and it was in that concerned voice of like, "What the fuck is this about?" So of course I go and I talk to her and find out, yeah, do you have a problem with me? And I said, "No, I have no problem with you. Why?" "Well, Chris Shapakazi," once those two words came, I said, excuse me, just stop right there. Whatever he told you, okay, whatever he said, let me apologize first and foremost, because he's talking about something that we hadn't, that I probably made the mistake of mentioning to him days ago, and now he's bringing it up just to get under your skin and you know, fuck with you. He's into that kind of thing. Like right now, again, my second DUI, I made the mistake of telling him about it not too long after I got it, and as soon as I did, I'm like, fuck me, he's not going to shut up about it. And that's so he likes, anytime he's around me, how many DUIs does it take to, you know, he'll start telling all these hacky, trying to do it, and he did it. I spent a ride coming back from Santa Cruz recently where that's all he was, and it just reminded me, yeah, these are the punishments of getting a second DUI in just life in general. It's my fault. It's not his fault that I just made the mistake also of telling him, but even if I didn't tell him, he would have found out sooner or later, and as he always does. But I always give advice to people who are close to him, just, you know, keep as much personal stuff out of your conversations as possible, because I do love the guy. Hopefully enough time will pass where we can talk and that won't be the subject of conversation with the guy. But yeah, again, the loyalty of people who were, that's, I think, a lot of people's experience. Chris is always one of the things, he's a diehard, he lives and dies for stand-up comedy. Everything's a joke to the guy at any time, except when you're making fun of him. Then he gets pissed off. He will get pissed. Did you ever tell any jokes? Did you ever get any back and forth with him?
I didn't, but I've seen it. I've seen it in other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many things did you ever see? Any things thrown at him or him threatened by?
Yeah, Kabizi one time brought him up at our old Mike Mission Pizza here in Fremont. Kabizi introduced, I wasn't there, but his wife might have heard him. He just said, "This guy's crazy. He just escaped from a mental hospital."
That's a good intro.
And then Chris came on stage and was so pissed that he started cursing when it was like there was children in there. And he knew he wasn't supposed to. So he said, he came on stage, he said, fuck, 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 and we almost got the mic canceled.
He does that.
I was pissed. That was the first time he really, really pissed me off.
And he can do, Chris will do whatever, if you give him any, I brought him to a punk open mic. It wasn't an open mic, it was like this little show. It was practically a mic, but it was in the backyard shack of this punk house. And strangely enough, he was tame. He was very charming that night. I've seen him though get a chair thrown at him, two beers poured on him, and one of those beers that was poured on him right after it was poured on him for being offensive to a lesbian couple that was pretty drunk anyway. It was that Dirty Tricks. He then charmed her by saying, "You just ruined." He goes, "You just." What did he say? He says, You just ruined my my sobriety streak. I've been sober for this, and you just poured beer on me. How am I supposed to go to my AA meetings now? And and he was going off on that, and he ended up, by the end of his set, had her clapping and laughing, which just tells you how drunk she was. But there's a lot of that. Again, so what now inspires you to keep doing stand-up? As far as, I mean, because you've now accomplished the 1,001 days. So that being, are you happy that you did that?
There was times during the thing where I was like, you know, why am I doing this? And then even with the Conan thing, like, I know that was cool, and I feel like I got that at the time because of that. Even though I feel like I would have got it sooner or later. And then, like, I got a New York Times article, which, like, a lot of people heard about, and I built a lot of buzz, and people will remember me as that. Yeah. So I don't regret it. To say I'm ecstatic having done it, no. I don't feel happiness that I did it, but I do feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. Though, you know, it's arguable, would I be even more successful if I just took a few nights off and didn't have that breakdown that kind of costed me a year of my sanity. Yeah. Because that last year was so rough that I lost a lot of my productivity. Even though I was performing every night, my writing got stifled. I was just not focused. So who knows? But I mean, I am proud. I'm happy that I did it in a way, I guess.
Do you think it's made you better?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, even with the fact that sometimes quality is more important than quantity, it got me to the point where it's like, even in a horrible, horrible feeling, horrible day I'm having, horrible situation, I will still be able to go up and do the thing. You know?
And the experience of Conan after at that point, because when I saw you on television, one of the things I noticed, you were much more animated. I think probably I hadn't seen, of all the stand-up sets I've seen, I don't think anybody used the stage as much as you did, moving around. You were moving around a lot, because I remember you were doing your Obama joke, and there was a lot of movement. You were using a head mic, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
I typically notice that most Conan sets, most of the comedians who aren't Conan are like, good writers who have like the kind of like the more low-key delivery. And though I do sway that way a lot of the times, like I didn't want to have a low energy set as my first TV debut, so I put a little more energy into it. Though I will say that that's not me being fully animated. Like, you put me in front of a theater of like people who would like to have fun, and I'm much more animated. Those are the sets that I like the most. But I often perform in front of these crowds that are a little more intellectual, a little more reserved, and so I kind of hold back. I scale back a little bit because I kind of just go off of the vibe of the crowd.
You adapt.
I like but I like being animated. I wish that I did more of those kinds of sets.
It was one of the things is I wasn't used to seeing that. One of the guys that I've seen who comes up here a lot locally, who is very animated. When I watched him versus a lot of other people that were before him that were local and not very good, was Sean Latham. Sean Latham, I'm sure you know him. Yeah, and that guy chews up. He walks all over the stage. I'd be curious to see what he looks like on a small stage, because I don't think you could contain him.
He's a funny dude.
Yeah, and he bounces all over the place, off the walls, and but that Conan experience, I remember at the end you were sitting on the couch before they ran the credits. What from that experience what was it like? Meeting Conan, and how was that experience like?
Well, he called me over to the couch, which I wasn't expecting. And I didn't know what that meant, if like he was going to interview me or something like that. But he didn't. We just closed the show with me on the couch, which was really cool. He called me over there, sat on the couch, and we talked a moment. And he asked me about the 1,000 days, like what I did when I was sick, and we shared a few moments. And he said some good things. He complimented my set, my material, my presentation. He was like really nice and reassuring. He was a really nice guy. Andy Richter was a really nice guy. And it was just really cool. It felt good. Though I mean, the whole time I was kind of like uncertain about how I did. I get that way a lot. Like I feel like Conan, the Conan stage is tough. It's tough for comedians. It's not a typical late night set. Like Letterman, you go out there, they're buttered, they're ready to applaud. Conan, you got to break them in, and it's like I was getting applause in the latter half of the set, but the first I had to sacrifice 5 jokes, which normally get an applause break, like my Palestinian roommate joke. That joke is usually like one of the strongest in my set, but I needed to throw that bullet out there to get the crowd slowly into it. So I had to sacrifice a few good jokes, which I was kind of like, and I was a little nervous at first. But so I was thinking about that the whole time. But then everybody was like, "Oh, you did great." So I was like, "Okay, well, I can relax."
One of the things that happened that night, I remember seeing this. I don't know if you were aware of this. This was one of the things that, again, in this comedy world. When something's going good for something, there's always going to be somebody that has to, be. I'm sometimes that guy where if I see somebody with a little too much, people put it on a pedestal. He's one of the people I didn't put on a pedestal. He's one of the few people I actually was publicly saying, like, congratulations, man. This is really, that, because I was really I was really impressed and inspired by what he did. But I saw a comedian who posted on Facebook like that night and tagged a shit ton of your peers about claiming that the Obama joke that another comedian had supposedly written pieces of it that I guess he handed off to you or something like that. I don't know exactly. And I asked the comedian about it, and he was saying it was bullshit what the guy was posting. But it was one of these things where he expected, I guess, some kind of shout out to from you to this other comedian for saying give credit where credit is due.
Where was this? I don't.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay, so you don't even know. It was comedian Big Chuckles, who's I don't know if you know him. He used to do a lot of Pepper Bellies. He's a big guy. And he was mentioning that Matt Gubser, I guess, had an Obama joke involving bears, or I don't know what the fuck it was, because I don't know this. I asked Matt, and Matt was like, "That's just some it was some bullshit that he was.
Yeah, actually, I remember Matt's joke.
Okay, so then,
and we actually, this was like a year. I already had the joke for a year, and one of the first times I met Matt, we did this theater together in Vallejo, and he came up to me either before or after one of us went up, and he was like, yeah, we both have a bear joke, and I was like, hey, cool, man, whatever, it's all good, I had already had it for a year. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I think that's when Matt was like starting out too.
Yeah.
And I don't think either one of us had seen each other's joke before we wrote ours, so it didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But I don't remember this. I don't remember.
So that's what I mean. Like, this one comedian here is trying to make a mountain out of what is essentially an anthill, not even a molehill, an anthill. And but he tagged a shit ton of and I saw it and was laughing my ass off. I'm like, that thing's going to be coming down in a matter of seconds.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
Did he tag me in it?
He didn't tag you in it. He tagged like people like Miles Weber. I do believe he tagged Matt Gubser.
When was this?
This was right the night of your performance.
On Conan?
On Conan. It was the night, and he posted it on Facebook, and it was one of those things where I almost was going to send him a message like, "Hey, Chuckles, why don't you lighten the fuck up, man? Like, dude, it's like you can think this shit and whatever."
So what did he say in the post?
Oh, he was claiming that supposedly. I guess he was claiming something that either you had borrowed something from Matt's joke or that it was somehow that he wasn't implying stealing, but it was something to the effect of you should give credit to Matt for something that really, again, there was nothing to give. And I think I'm willing to bet that not only Matt but a bunch of people had wrote him right after this post because they were online too, and were just like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
And then he took it down.
It was gone within seconds. But it was one of those things that again, comedians thinking that, just having our limited perspective on, especially when it comes to jokes and jokes that are similar. Again, that parallel thinking type of thing that you can think of a joke.
We're all just trying to get some big chuckles.
Exactly. There you go. And Chuckles, for instance, and I love Chuckles because I've only worked with him a handful of times, and I accidentally missed a gig on 420 because I got too drunk with an old friend that day and drove out there and missed the exits to Vallejo and really shouldn't have been drunk driving anyway, which again, second DUI. But one of the things that he once told outside of Dorsey's Locker, popular local open mic that you're a graduate of, he mentioned how don't shake hands. When people are shaking hands before you go do your set, don't shake hands with other comedians because there's a transfer. They're stealing your energy through this shaking of hands.
Really?
Yeah. That's where, again, you got to consider the sources of a lot of these things when people are offering bits of advice and bullshit. And he was just saying that that they're stealing your energy and that affects you on stage. I've shaken a shit ton of hands, more so than I've ever shaken in pursuing aspiring. Yeah,
that's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
It's fucking bullshit.
It's some bullshit. I don't know what
If you think of it that way, if you
happen.
see comedians as competitors trying to suck your energy and you can't generate your own energy, then yes, it's absolutely true.
It probably is true. But
stop being such a pussy.
That's what's called the Cassandra effect. I learned this from 12 Monkeys. Where perception, you make perception reality.
See it as the comedian giving you energy.
Yeah,
Every time I shake a comedian's hand before I go on stage, I tell one of his jokes on stage.
Look at that.
Boom.
Look at that. Now tonight my energy's going to his set. I'm
talking about my Western joke.
There you go, man. So
Brokeback Mountain. Worst Western ever.
Fucking shitty.
The power is mine, man. That's how you switch that around.
Man, it fucking happens everywhere, But I want to thank you again for making the time to do this. I know you're a very busy man, going all over the place. And you got any gigs coming up? This will probably be posted within the week. You got any big gigs?
I'm performing in Monterey tonight. I'm going to Los Angeles on Tuesday, so all my gigs will be in Los Angeles. I'll be at the Ontario Improv on the 12th, Malibu also on the 12th, doing the winery.
You got any big gigs coming up in the coming months?
In the Bay?
In the Bay or anywhere?
I'm going to the Middle East. You're doing the Middle East. I'm going to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Qatar.
When's that?
In the end of August, beginning of September.
Fuck yeah!
And other than that, nothing big, nothing crazy big.
That's pretty crazy big.
Working on another late night set. Hopefully that'll be out by the end of the year, but we'll see.
Are you going to be on Conan again?
that's probably the first bet. Yeah.
Cool. Fuck yeah, man. Yeah, I've seen others get a second set on there that are from the Bay Area. There's there's Emily Heller, Alex Cole, who I've seen on there, and
I think he's only done one.
He's done one, and you.
Yeah.
Those are the three people. I don't know Emily Heller. I think I've seen her at some open mics before, but I don't know her before she moved. And
great.
yeah, and she does a lot of writing for television and stuff, and has a lot of friends still in the Bay Area. And but yeah, again, I want to thank you for making the time to doing my little tube cast here. Hopefully, this will get as many views as our most popular, if not more views than the most popular one. And as you can tell by his body language, very humble man. You know, face between the knees, kind of thing. And like
I do after every set.
Did that documentary that they were filming at the time? Did anything ever come of that? I remember that guy.
We're editing it right now.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Because he's got a documentary.
I'm hoping to release it and sync it with my next late night, so I can be like, oh, this guy's got a documentary out.
Damn, nice. Because I got to be interviewed in a little bit of this documentary. And
yes, he did. I hope that makes the cut.
Yeah, same here. Same here, too, because he had me talking for a long fucking time, because I love to talk, in case you can't tell. It's been said before about these podcasts, but it's like, what are we going to do? Just sit here and silent comedy? I mean, the shots are nice. But yeah, what was funny, the thing that I mentioned in that documentary, and I still wish it for you, I hope that wherever this journey leads you to, you find something that you love within it that you're doing, because when I saw you working as hard as you were, it reminded me, I worked very hard in the field of video game testing, which I did not love. I used to love video games until I got into the job of video game testing, and it's slowly, a lot of that world is very, very similar to this world of stand-up comedians, very insecure people, a lot of people trying to figure different ways to get perm spots, which is really ridiculous, because most of these companies come and go, and they hire and fire perms just as much as they do temps. I mostly tried to stay in the temp line, because I like to be low in the just totem pole, and that way you can collect a lot of unemployment, more than you do in stand-up comedy. But then I also cut off doing those jobs. I stopped doing them after a while, but I've been doing it for 14 years, and I did not love it. And I stopped playing video games very early on for fun, which also then helped. It's like they want people that do play video. So actually, I can't get a job regularly now playing video games because I don't play more video games. So take that, Mom. I could have been. I should have been playing more video games as a child. But again, I want to thank him for being part of this, for doing this little tube cast here, and wish you a lot of luck and a lot of love out there on the road.
Joke stolen.
Fuck yeah, another one. You can take them all, man. Shit, my jokes, shit. I must dive bars, laundromats, and swimming pool sites. So any help I can be. But yeah, we're here at lovely Lake Elizabeth. Give you a shot of the park as we say goodbye here. Wonderful little park there, as you can see. There's the lake. And with that is the end of In the Meantime, the Celebrity Edition, local Celebrity Edition. Sammy Obeid. Want to thank you again. And yeah, check out all the fucking podcasts, you fucking humps. All right, bye.